Let me set the scene for you. It was a Saturday afternoon in late spring, the kind of day where the sun is warm but the air still carries a little chill, and I was standing in the backyard of a country club, wearing a blazer that was slightly too tight in the shoulders because I'd put on a few pounds over the winter. My stepdaughter, Chloe, was getting engaged. Now, if you've been following Karma After Midnight for a while, you know that family dynamics can be tricky, but this was a different beast entirely. Chloe and I have always had a complicated relationship. I came into her life when she was 9, and for the last 15 years, I've done everything a dad is supposed to do. I went to the parent-teacher conferences, I taught her how to drive a stick shift, I paid for her college textbooks, and I fixed every leaky faucet and broken shelf in her mother's house. But to Chloe, I was never dad. I was just the guy who married her mom, and she had a special way of letting me know that I wasn't quite good enough for her family. So there I was, holding a glass of champagne I didn't really want, watching her float around the room in a white dress, introducing her fiancé, Marcus, to all the important people. I was standing near the dessert table, minding my own business, when I heard her voice cut through the chatter. She was talking to Marcus's mother, a woman I hadn't met yet, a woman who apparently came from old money, the kind of family that had summer homes and winter homes, and probably a home just for their cars. Chloe had a habit of trying to impress people by putting me down. It was her way of establishing that she came from good stock, that the man her mother married was just some blue-collar fluke. So, with a laugh that was a little too loud, she gestured toward me and said, "Oh, don't worry about him. That's just my mom's husband. He's a sweet guy, but he's basically just the poor handyman we keep around. You know how it is. If a pipe bursts or a door squeaks, we call him. He's good with his hands, but not much else." I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't the first time she'd said something like that, but this was different. This was in front of her future in-laws and a room full of people who were sizing her up, and she used me as a stepping stool to make herself look taller. I saw her mother, my wife, Diane, freeze with a glass of wine halfway to her lips. She opened her mouth to say something, but before she could, the future mother-in-law, a tall woman with silver hair and a string of pearls that probably cost more than my truck, started walking toward me. I braced myself. I figured she was coming over to look down her nose at the handyman who had wandered into her son's engagement party. I set my champagne glass down on a table, ready to apologize for my stepdaughter's behavior, or maybe just excuse myself to go hide in the parking lot. But when she reached me, she didn't glare. She squinted, tilting her head like she was trying to solve a puzzle. She looked at my hands, then at my face, and then she did something that stopped my heart. She reached out and touched the lapel of my cheap, too-tight blazer. She looked me dead in the eye, and her voice, which had been so cool and distant all afternoon, suddenly cracked. "It's you," she whispered. I looked around, thinking maybe she was talking to someone behind me. But no, her eyes were locked on mine. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked. I shook my head. I had no idea who this woman was. She took a deep breath, and then she said, 23 years ago, a highway pileup on I-95, a semi jackknifed in the rain. My car was crushed. I was trapped in the driver's seat for 45 minutes. The paramedics said they couldn't get the door open without killing me. They were about to call for the jaws of life, which would have taken another 30 minutes. But then a man in a beat-up truck pulled over. He wasn't a firefighter. He wasn't a cop. He was just a guy who saw the accident and didn't keep driving. He crawled through the wreckage, grabbed a crowbar from his truck bed, and pried that door open with his bare hands while hydraulic fluid was leaking everywhere. He pulled me out 2 minutes before the car caught fire. The room was silent. My wife Diane was crying. Chloe was standing behind her future mother-in-law, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The woman, her name was Eleanor, I later learned, grabbed my hand and held it tight. "You saved my life," she said. "I've been looking for you for over 2 decades. I hired private investigators. I went back to the crash site every year on the anniversary. I told my son about you his whole life. I told him that the reason he had a mother was because of a stranger with a crowbar who didn't care about the danger. And you're standing here at my son's engagement party, and my future daughter-in-law is calling you a poor handyman?" She turned around then, and the shift in the room was palpable. Eleanor looked at Chloe, and her voice wasn't cold anymore, it was steel. "Let me tell you something about that man," she said, loud enough for the entire patio to hear. "He is the reason I got to see my son graduate medical school. He is the reason I walked him down the aisle at his first wedding, and the reason I'm standing here today to celebrate his second chance at love. He didn't ask for a reward. He didn't give me his name. He just made sure I was breathing, handed me a bottle of water from his truck, and drove off into the rain. I've spent 23 years trying to find him to say thank you. And you, young lady, are marrying my son, but you think this man is beneath you? If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible, or unappreciated, or like your hard work meant nothing to the people around you, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button, not for me, but for the handyman,
The blue-collar workers, the stepdads, and the quiet heroes who never get the credit they deserve. This channel, Karma After Midnight, is built on stories where the universe balances the scales. And if you want to see more stories where justice comes for the arrogant, go ahead and smash that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss what happened next. Because what happened next was the kind of poetic justice that you only see in movies. Eleanor didn't stop. She walked over to Chloe, who was now visibly shaking, and she said, "My son told me your stepdaughter was a contractor. He said you were proud of the house he built for your mother, but today I hear you calling him a handyman like it's a dirty word." She turned to Marcus, her son, who looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. "Marcus," she said, "did you know that the man who saved my life is the same man you told me installed the custom mahogany deck at your new office building?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, Mom, that's him. He's the best in the state, that's why I hired him." And just like that, the whole truth came spilling out. "You see, I run a high-end renovation company. I don't just fix leaky faucets, I build million-dollar homes. I restore historic properties. I do the kind of work that architects fly in from other states to supervise." But Chloe, in her desperate need to look like she came from old money, from the kind of family that doesn't have to work with their hands, had been lying to her fiancé's family for months. She told them her mother married a simple contractor who was rough around the edges. She downplayed my career, my reputation, and my entire existence so she could fit into this world of country clubs and trust funds. And in that moment, standing in front of the 70 guests, her lies crumbled. Eleanor looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to repay you," she said. I just shrugged. "You just did," I told her. I looked over at Chloe. She was standing there, holding her engagement ring, and for the first time in 15 years, she looked at me not with disdain, but with fear. Not fear of me, but fear of what she just lost. Because the narrative had flipped. She wasn't the princess slumming it with the working class anymore. She was the woman who had insulted the man who saved her future mother-in-law's life. She was the woman who mocked the very person who had made her fiancé's career connections possible. The rest of the party was a blur. People came up to me all night. People who had been giving me polite, distant nods just an hour earlier. Now they were shaking my hand, telling me they had heard about my work, asking if I could consult on their renovation projects. Marcus, the groom-to-be, pulled me aside and apologized profusely. He said he had no idea Chloe was talking about me like that behind his back. He said he thought she respected me. Diane, my wife, was so furious she couldn't even look at Chloe. She spent the rest of the evening glued to my side, whispering, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I let her do this for so long." But the real moment came at the end of the night. The guests had mostly left, and the staff was clearing the tables. I was standing by the valet stand, waiting for my truck, when Chloe came running out. Her mascara was running, and she was holding her heels in her hand. She stopped in front of me, breathing hard. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Then she spoke, and her voice was small. "I didn't know," she said. "I know you didn't," I replied. "But that's kind of the point, isn't it, Chloe? You didn't know because you never asked. You never wanted to know who I was. You just needed me to be someone small so you could feel big." She started crying then. Not the fake, performative crying she did when she wanted to get out of trouble as a teenager, but real, ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. She apologized. She apologized for every snide comment, every eye roll, every time she introduced me as her mom's husband instead of her stepdad. She apologized for the engagement party. I let her talk. I let her get it all out. And then I did something that surprised her. I pulled her into a hug. I told her that I didn't save Eleanor all those years ago for a reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And I told her that I became her stepdaughter for the same reason. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because I loved her mom. And I loved her, even when she made it hard. I told you she didn't have to call me dad, but I said she needed to stop pretending I was a stranger in her life. She nodded against my shoulder, and I knew things were going to be different. Not perfect, but different. She drove home with her mom that night, and I drove home alone, just to have a minute to process everything. When I got home, I sat on the deck, the one I built with my own 2 hands, and I just looked up at the stars. I thought about that rainy night on I-95, the sound of the metal screaming as I pried that door open, the feeling of Eleanor's hand gripping my arm. I had never told anyone about that. Not Diane, not Chloe, no one. I never wanted the hero worship. But seeing the look on Eleanor's face when she recognized me, seeing the truth finally come out about who I really am to this family, it felt like the universe had finally cleared my name.
Now, if you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what happened to the engagement. Did it get called off? No, it didn't. Marcus and Chloe are still together. But there was a condition. Eleanor sat Chloe down the next week and told her that if she was going to marry into the family, she was going to learn some humility. She made Chloe volunteer with a housing charity that I support, building homes for families in need. And the first day she showed up, wearing work boots and a tool belt, looking absolutely miserable, I was there. I taught her how to swing a hammer. I taught her how to measure a stud. And slowly, over the next few months, something shifted. She stopped looking at the work as something beneath her. She started respecting the sweat and the effort it took to build something that lasts. The wedding was 6 months later, and when the officiant asked, Who gives this woman away? It wasn't her biological father who stepped forward. He had been absent her whole life. It was me. Diane squeezed my hand so hard I thought she was going to break it. Chloe walked down the aisle, looked me right in the eyes, and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." When the ceremony was over, Eleanor found me in the crowd. She hugged me and she whispered, "I told you, the universe doesn't forget." And she was right. It doesn't. So here's the thing. This story isn't just about a stepdad getting revenge on a bratty stepdaughter. It's about the fact that you never know who you're talking to. You never know what someone has done, what they've sacrificed, or who they've saved. Chloe learned that lesson the hard way. She spent years trying to elevate herself by diminishing me, and it backfired in the most public way possible. But she also learned that redemption is possible. She learned that it's never too late to start treating people with the respect they deserve. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had someone in your life who treated you like you were less than you are, only for the truth to come out in a spectacular way? Go down to the comment section right now and tell me your story. I read every single comment on this channel, and I know the Karma After Midnight community loves to rally around people who have been through it. And if you found this story satisfying, if you believe that what goes around really does come around, then do me a favor. Share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their hard work, their kindness, and their integrity will be seen eventually. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that you can't fake character forever. The truth has a way of coming out, just like it did on that spring afternoon at the country club. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I know we're almost at 15 minutes, and I genuinely appreciate you sticking with me until the end. It means the world to know that you value these stories as much as I love telling them. My name is the voice behind Karma After Midnight. And until next time, remember, be careful who you look down on. You never know whose life they've saved, and you never know whose respect they've already earned. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next story.